Welcome back to part 3 of our summer series. And before I even get into the next topic, hopefully you've watched parts 1 and 2. I want to thank Dom and Blake, our producers, for this. They've done a great job, and just trying to get this information out to our awesome fan base. We just figured this was a good thing during kind of a lull in time right now. Obviously around the baseball all-star game, there's not a lot going on, so we wanted to get as much content out there as possible. Let's talk scheduling. Scheduling. I'm just going to throw that out there. The word scheduling, you guys go for it.
There's a lot there, right? Like we've been, a lot of emails going back and forth. And the biggest thing is we're just trying to make sure everything doesn't just kind of go on top of each other. And sometimes with the conference schedules, and there's a lot of constituencies that you either get schedules given to you, or you're trying to assign games, you're trying to work with other teams, you're trying to fit sometimes a team that might come in, but they only have a certain date or time. So again, trying to get creative with the certain ways and how we can have schedules. But yeah, with Western Illinois departing the Summit League has kind of put a little bit of we have to try to maneuver around kind of the changes that have happened, and I think we've done it very well collaboratively, but it's not easy when you're trying to think through everything. So when we have our master list that we're putting together, is the venue still available? Can we do this from a getting in and out perspective? Well, we already had contracts. What do the contracts look like? How do we maneuver around those? And just the different needs of visiting teams and our needs, and missed class time, and just the different things that we have to maneuver around. It's a lift, but we're getting through it, and I think we're pretty happy with how things are shaking out this year for sure.
For sure, that's the macro side for sure. And we were kind of throwing curveball with Western, departing as late as they did. I know it's affected a little bit. Certainly, I know you've got venues issues when it comes to not just our sports teams, right? You've rented it out in some other ways.
Yeah, I always chuckle and say scheduling, you better be pretty nimble, right? I would suspect that most people are a little bit unaware of how far in advance most schedules are done, right? So the three of us are looking at conference schedules 3, 4, 5 years out.
Yeah.
And when you have a change like a Western Illinois that departs, or you have an addition of an Arizona State, all those things occur, right? But they don't happen in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. Our scheduling priorities are to take care of all of our UND athletic events, get those on the calendar, and then we do try and build other events around that as makes sense to try and make money when we can.
Sure.
So when schedules change, like you say, you might be committed to an event and say, hey, we had that weekend booked based on the fact that we thought the team was going to be on the road or whatever it be, and you throw out 3 or 4 years of schedules and now you're working on new ones. So it's always interesting, but I would give the conferences, I thought this spring, in my opinion, and summer, I'd give the conferences great credit for how quickly they have pivoted. Like to see the Summit League schedules that we're looking at now, and some of the basketball ones that will be released, I think our fans are going to be really happy to see that there's really minimal changes.
Yep.
Right? When you talk about things like Thursday, Saturday schedules, and you see our hockey schedule with the addition of Arizona State, very similar. Mm-hmm. I think they did a great job at turning that around quickly, and I think we're in a pretty good spot as a result.
Let me ask you guys a question. I've been asked this question a couple of times. What's your thoughts on mirror scheduling for basketball?
I'll go first. Marty's laughing.
Go ahead.
I'll go first and say I love the consistency of it.
Yeah.
So from a fan standpoint, I love the consistency of Thursday night, Saturday afternoon, where people can build their schedules into that. I'm a guy that thinks the more varied or more dynamic scheduling is, I think the harder it is to have people create their schedules to attend. So I like it. I think I might have a different answer, I guess, if I knew every game was televised on the road, and if we were playing men's basketball at home on a Thursday night and women's was on national TV at the same time, I might have different thoughts on which they're going to watch during that time period or attend. But boy, I think it works pretty darn well myself.
Yeah, I love the thought of getting into a routine, with families and everything else. Routine is a big one, so I love, that we can tell our fans, hey, Thursday night, come to the Betty. Plan on being at the Betty Thursdays and Saturdays. I think it's tough, and I think we've done a pretty good job of trying to look at, okay, do we need to play the men's basketball and women's basketball if they are mirrored home and away at the same time? And we're trying to do certain things like that. There are sometimes ways that it just doesn't happen, but I like it. I'm a fan of the doubleheader sometimes too. Like I like a little change up, but the mirror scheduling isn't the worst. I think again that consistency piece is important. But But yeah, as long as we're playing and being thoughtful of it, that's
You
what
might
we do.
you might even have a different answer depending on what school you're at, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're at school without a hockey program, you may say, hey, I want to play basketball Friday night and Saturday night. In our world, where we're talking about concurrent events and venues, we're trying to juggle the staffing that work the events and parking and access, and knowing that a fan in a market like ours can't go to a home hockey game at 7 o'clock on a Friday night and a home basketball game at the same time, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
you probably have a different answer, maybe even depending on what school you're at.
And I think with the mirrored scheduling, when we do have those times where men's basketball is playing at the same time as women's basketball, I think, with the advent of the Midco Sports Plus app and the different things that, like you said, the national television, what we're trying to do and try to rethink from that, the hospitality area and stuff like that, there might be a way where you can have your eyes on both. I know there's fans, I know where even some of them sit, where they got their phone right next to them when they're watching, another team compete, right? Whether it's volleyball, the crossover season, all of that. So it's not great, but with the advent of great technology, I think you can kind of do both.
The other factor too is our student athletes.
Yeah.
Right? Our kids are going to school.
That's what I was
They're
going to say.
full-time students.
Yeah.
Like,
100%.
when you include the travel and the time pressure on them, like there's got to be some consistency in their life. And they got to get home and have time to do homework and all those things. I think that's probably a factor. Maybe all of us, even in fans, don't speak to enough maybe at times, but most of those kids are full-time students and doing all they're doing.
That's the reason why football and hockey becomes, I would say, they just get into a regimented, pattern all year long. And so therefore, this gives them that when they get off of the non-conference season, because the non-conference, we're just trying to plug dates at that point in time. So you could play on a Tuesday, you could play on a Sunday, it just depends. But ultimately, I do think that's fair. So we'll see what happens. We've got 9 teams now in the Summit League. I don't think you're going to have the travel partners. So obviously, because there's an odd number of teams, I don't know what's going to happen moving forward. I think there will be a discussion, but everyone comes at it from a different view.
Yeah.
So, couple other things, and jump in on here. 2 other quickies I want to get to, and then we'll close out this session. Is scheduling as it pertains to hockey. So you two can chat about that. And then just finish up, Jody, just over the course of your time here, non-athletic schedules or non-athletic events. What have you learned over the course of time?
Yeah, great question. I'll maybe tackle that one first, and we can talk about scheduling. But it certainly evolved, right? I think probably some of the biggest changes that I've seen in the non-athletic events would be things like some of the industry changes, right? If you look today, you can see that the top 100 concert tours in the country last year, the average ticket price is now $116.
Really?
Like that industry has changed significantly in terms of the kind of general trend towards mega shows and big shows and the cost of shows. And that's an issue for us in our market, right? The cost of attendance and the ticket prices that make sense, and the risk and reward ratio in that business probably hasn't gotten any saner in the time I've been in the industry. The pendulum, I think, especially maybe coming out of COVID, has swung a little bit more in terms of the risk part of the continuum. So I think there's certainly some interesting things happening there, and we've always had the mindset of maybe the best way to say it would be the clarity of this operation to me is easy to understand. Mr. Ingolstead built this building to be a benefit to UND athletics. So there's clear information that says, hey, we're going to do all of our athletic events, and then we're going to build other events around that as we can when it makes sense to do so. So it's a little different model, right? Some of my colleagues around the country are built more on just a pure profit model, or they're built on a pure economic development model in their community where they're trying to get heads and beds and generate visitor traffic to their community. Ours is probably a little more narrow and a little more focused on the benefit to athletics. So I think it makes it a little easier to make those decisions when you get to the fork in the road of what kind of risk are we going to take on a special event, and what is our priority, or what's our value system here to achieve our mission. So I think I've learned a little bit that market size is also a factor here, right? I moved here from a market in Seattle, Tacoma, where I always said, hey, sales covered all sins, and with a market in excess of 3.5 million people, you couldn't mess most shows up. I've learned you can mess a few up here, so I've probably learned a few things for sure.
What about other events, such as, and I know you had both high school graduations, maybe multiple high school. You've always had high school graduations, but you had the 2 Grand Forks schools here as well.
I thought they were great. Like I often laughed. I come in the weekend after a Shrine Circus, and I say that's an example of an event where, kind of quietly, right? Like over a weekend, we did 7 shows this year with 22,000 people who came through the building. Many of which we don't see at all of our athletic events.
Right.
So from a community standpoint, I thought that was a really neat event to be a community gathering place for a lot of people that don't normally come. And then I really enjoyed, like this year, the high school graduations too. I thought they were a great fit in the Betty and be a great place to kind of bring the community together for an important day for kids and families. And I think there's great value in getting that on our campus and having kids exposed to our facilities on our campus. So kind of checks the boxes.
No doubt. Hockey scheduling. We'll end it with hockey scheduling. Just go wherever you want to go.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of cool places that a lot of our teams are going. Like even football, Boise State, right? Like and then with the hockey team, we have Minnesota coming to town. We're going out to BU this year. I think it's a great schedule, and I think it'll be really fun from a season perspective of just bringing some non-conference, but also having that the NCHC is a great. Anytime someone comes in from an NCHC conference game, it's going to be a great game, and it's going to be a hard-fought battle. So from every night standpoint that we're playing out on the ice, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I agree. Short term, we got a great home schedule this year. We're going to play 24 games in the regular season at home, right? West Point's coming, Wisconsin's coming, Gophers, Mankato. We're going to have a great schedule. So in the short term, I think this year looks fantastic. I'm also really excited about the NCHC schedule moving forward. Like personally, the addition of Arizona State, I think brings us a great market. It brings us great name recognition with a big institution that's invested in hockey. They're all in. I think they're going to be a great addition. And I kind of like the 3-team pod. I like the fact that we're going to play Duluth and St. Cloud 4 times a year. Those are places where our fans can jump in a car, they can go on the road, their fans can come to us. I kind of like the geographical rivalries there, and I think it's going to be great.
What about futuristically? I know we host obviously a lot of regionals. You're knee deep in that, Marty. But at the end of the day, also Frozen 4 too.
Yeah, we have the 26 Frozen 4. So we have great partners with the Las Vegas events in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we're going to host the UND is going to host the 26 Frozen 4 down there. So pretty cool to see the Stanley Cup and see what they can do from an event standpoint. We've have a lot of notes, and so Jody and I will kind of tackle that, and it'd be fun. It'd be great to host that, but also it'd be great to have our team down there to raise a banner there too.
Yeah, I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Like that'll be the best Frozen 4, like in terms of the event experience and the fan experience. I think it's going to be awesome.
And then the last thing is destination games obviously have been a success, and I know we've had a lot of conversations about it, but certainly we're being thoughtful. Is that the best way of putting it?
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. I think we're really excited to host the Icebreaker here this October. We're really excited to host the Hall of Fame game here next October, and then we'll look ahead and try and figure out what we do beyond there. But I've always thought it's a bit of a balancing act, right? It's a balancing act to take some of those trips for the fans and fan development, fan growth, and student athlete experience, but also feel a little bit of a sense of responsibility to do some of those things in our community to generate economic impact for our partners in the community and our hoteliers and restaurants and all those things. So we're actually going to try and do something fun, like for the Hall of Fame game next year. We just play one game on a Saturday night. We're going to try and do a big reunion event and almost a staycation of sorts, and try and replicate some of what's happened at destination games at home for a weekend to see how that works.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yep.
Anything further?
No, that's it. I mean, it goes back to we're always trying to think of the next thing and trying to think of what can we do, but be creative in doing it. And I think that's the ode to that Hall of Fame day. And like you said, the staycation piece. We're gonna have some tricks up our sleeve, and I think it'll be exciting.
Thanks to Dom. Thanks to Blake. Appreciate you doing what you're doing, and hopefully you enjoyed this 3-part series.